We are indeed live. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, folks. I am with Mike Vardy today. This is going to be a podcast within a broadcast. And I know it says that we are live on 4 platforms today. Today, we are only going to be live on Facebook. It is giving me a slight hiccup, and I don't want to spend the morning trying to fight it. I will solve it on my own time. So let me get the podcast going, and I will introduce Mike formally for the podcast, and we will go. Now, I am only sending this to Facebook, so I am monitoring your comments. So if you have any questions or comments for either Mike or I, please leave them in the comments below, and I will respond. And Mike, if you want, you can actually, if you want on your phone or an iPad, if you've got one handy, you can actually watch this video and see the comments yourself on your end if you'd like.
Yep.
All right, folks.
Awesome.
Here we go. This is Todd Bergen. Welcome to the Create and Engage Todd.LIVE podcast. Folks, today I have my friend Mike Vardy on the program. We are going to discuss, among other things, Vidcon 2017, which we both attended in Anaheim, California last month, as well as World Domination Summit 2017, which is in Portland, Oregon next week, which Mike and I will both be attending. Mike is a speaker at World Domination Summit. He's been speaking there for years. He's been attending since it started. I met him there last year, and we've quickly become friends. And we had a great time at VidCon, and I'm sure we're going to have even a better time at World Domination Summit. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Todd?
Fantastic. Folks, Mike is also known as the Productivityist. That is his website, productivityist.com. It's a little tricky to spell, but I'm confident you guys can find it. Mike, tell us about World Domination Summit. Let's start with World Domination Summit and kind of take that off the table. What have you got in store for us at World Domination Summit?
So I'm speaking at, I've got an academy this year, and I've had an academy for the past few years. Past couple years. It was last year I did one as a guest as part of one with Mark and Angel Chernoff of Mark and Angel Hack Life, and Charlie Gilkey was there, and a few others, Kendra Wright. This year I've got my own. I'm hosting my own, and it's called How to Craft Your Time for World Domination. And basically, as a time management strategist and a productivity strategist, I want to help people craft their time. And going into an event like this, and I know you could appreciate this, Todd, I'm sure a lot of people can, is that you go into an event and you want to take notes, and then you want to leave and be able to take action. And then you leave the event and you go back to your life and nothing really changes. Well, my goal with this academy is to give you some tactics and some tips and some tools so that you can go forward after being at this event. And by the way, even if you're not attending World Domination Summit, you can get tickets to go to this event. There's still a few tickets left, so you don't have to be a WDSer to go. Tickets are a bit more if you're not a WDSer, but nonetheless. So I want to leave people with some strategies that they can apply. And so I've got a couple of special guests lined up, and I'm going to go through my methodologies and my frameworks on how to craft your time better, so that you can come out at the end of the workshop, the end of the academy, with some with the confidence that you'll have a simple, flexible, and durable approach to not just what you do when you leave WDS with what you learned at WDS, but for anything and everything else that comes your way down the road.
Yeah, and so you said it's an academy, but it's also a workshop. So I imagine there's going to be fairly heavy interaction with the crowd. And you said before we got on the show today, you've got 110 people so far signed up for this event?
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. So for me, I think they're capping it at about 120. So there's a few spots left, but you're right. It's going to be an interactive workshop. So it won't just be you sitting there and me kind of lecturing you. There's going to be some interaction. And that's kind of what I think, that kind of activity. And if you've been to WDS before, and I know you have, Todd, what it does is it kind of gives you the interaction in those academies. Whereas during the main stage keynotes, they're more of a sit back and absorb what comes your way. In the academies, there's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of engagement with the audience in a very different way. So that's what my plan is with the academy. And in a week and one day from today, as we're recording this, I'll be on stage. I'll be kicking it off, actually. If we're doing this live, like I'm 7 minutes in, 8 days from now. So there you go.
That's awesome. It's going to be awesome. So this is your 7th year at WDS. How many years have you been speaking at WDS since you started going?
So this is my second time going on a stage. I've never been a main stage speaker. That's always been a bucket list thing of mine. And what's funny is that the way my understanding is with the World Domination Summit is that Chris invites people to come up and do main stage. So that invitation hasn't been extended yet. I don't know if it ever will. But last 2 years, this year and last year, I actually had an academy. And before that, I had 2 years where I was doing meetups. So much like what you're doing this year. So I did a meetup, a productivity meetup with my friends at Asian Efficiency, as well as with Kendra Wright, the 2 prior years. I've been actually asked in the World Domination Summit application whether or not I should if I'd be willing to do another another meetup maybe later in the week, and I might do one on the Sunday or something like that. I haven't decided yet, but I've been to every single one of these events since day one when Brene Brown was there, and a few other Pam Slim, like the usual suspects, like Pam Slim, Jonathan Fields, Leo Babauta from Zen Habits. Every year I've been. I don't even. It's funny. Every year they say who's been to every one of them, and every year obviously the list dwindles. I may be one of the last people there. I may be the last. I guess we'll know next week. But I get a lot out of it. The energy of the event is amazing. And the fact that I get to bring my knowledge and my passion to a stage, to a group of people in an academy, and then likely thereafter just talking to people, I think that's just a gift for me.
You know what? For people who might not be very familiar with World Domination Summit, and I could probably sum it up nicely, but I think you could do better after 7 years. Tell the people a little bit. I mean, what is World Domination Summit? Let's kind of back up and just kind of address what is it?
So to try to give it to you in a bit of a Cliff's Notes version, the World Domination Summit is an event that was started up by Chris Guillebeau and his team. Chris Guillebeau is the author of many books. The $100 Startup is probably the one he's best known for. He's got a new one coming out in September about side hustles. But Chris started a blog years ago called The Art of Nonconformity, where his goal was to reach 192 countries, all 192 countries. And during that mission, he decided to start this event called the World Domination Summit. And the whole idea was to bring together a group of people. Initially, it was, I think, 300 to 500. It grew to 3,000 people up until 2 years ago, where now they've scaled it back to 1,000 again. Where the community was built together around the idea of adventure, service, and community. So the idea of doing really interesting, scary, risky, fun things, things that serve others in the immediate community, as well as those that are not in your immediate community. And then obviously the community itself, like, building a group of people because, we're stronger when we're together. And it's an event that takes place over, initially it was like a 2-day event. With a beginning party and then a closing party, and it's grown to like a week-long event at this point, where things get started basically next Tuesday, and it goes all the way till the following Monday. Little meetups and adventures. There were times where they were doing world records. So in the first few years, they were setting world records, and they set the world records for the longest, I think, daisy chain on a river in tubes. They did a yoga thing. They've done breakfast in bed. Most people having breakfast in bed. And the way that this event differs from a lot of them is that the branding, the crafting of the event itself is just really, really well done. Chris does everything very deliberately and very much with care. In fact, every year at the end of his, you've been, this is your second year going, right?
Yeah.
So you'll notice, and I'll throw this out there, anyone who's been before, what Chris does at the end of the and it's a total tell. If you're a poker player, it's a tell. But what he does is he rolls his sleeves up, and during his last little spiel, and when he does that, that he's going to. It's like his Steve Jobs one more thing moment. Chris does things very, very deliberately, intentionally. And he pays great attention to detail. He's a very generous soul, and that spreads throughout the whole event. In fact, one thing that happened 3 years ago, I think it was, maybe four, is Donald Miller, who is a well-known, online personality, author, and frankly, his audience is in the Christian space. He said at the end of his talk, and I think he was the final keynote, is he said, "Listen, I've been here all week, and I have to say that I think my audience, my people, could learn a lot from everyone here, these people right here." And that tells you a lot about what you get when you're part of this experience.
Yes, and I would agree wholeheartedly. The event for me was life-changing. I was recommended to go by our mutual friend, Jamie Masters. At the time, she was Jamie Tardy. I know that you guys used to have the rhyming name. Yeah, she recommended. Well, I asked her, I just said, what would be a good something for me to go to? We were just kind of casually talking. And she said, well, World Domination Summit's coming up. Do you know anything about that? And I didn't. And I'm forever grateful that she recommended that. And I would like to go every year. I don't know if I'm going to, like we were talking about buying the ticket early this year, like we did last year. I don't know that I'm going to commit. It's just such a big commitment in the summer when you have children and stuff, but it is a life-changing event. Chris does, it's from the beginning to end. It's nothing but fun and learning and community. There was a lot of crying. I mean, there were things that, the main stage event, some of the speeches that were given, you're just in tears. Some of the stories, some of the things that these people have gone through and come out the other side. I remember Zach Anner. I think that was how you pronounce his last name. He just knocked it out of the ballpark. And it was funny. And he transitioned you from a laugh to crying back to a laugh, like in seconds, it seemed like. It was just an amazing experience. The people that Chris picks for this, at every level is, I think, you're right, the attention to detail, and he wants to put on a good show, and I'm doing the meetup thanks to you, folks. I'm doing a meetup. I'm going to be talking about live video and getting started in live video, and I sent in my application, and I thought I would hear something back prior to being approved, and I didn't, and I just got curious, and there it was in the app, and it was already full. It was just like that. 18 people. So that's going to be my first. Now, I did do a video the other day, and I was thinking about this, Mike. How you got started you kind of mentioned how you got started in speaking, and I want to talk a little bit about that more in a minute, because you went to Tropical Think Tank, and I want to ask you about that. But I am, in a sense, a public speaker, but my public speaking experience is completely different than yours and a lot of people that do speak at WDS. When I did my public speaking, I was an attorney, and the only person I was looking at was the judge. So, everybody, there was maybe a room full of people sometimes, but they were all behind me, and I didn't have to think about them. They were behind me. So this time I'm going to be in front of, I think it's 18 people, including yourself. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to have fun, but, tell me a little bit about Tropical Think Tank. That's a really big experience for both people attending and people speaking. Chris Ducker really picks his people wisely, and you got to speak there this year. How was that?
I did. So Tropical Think Tank is an experience like none other in terms of events that I've gone to, because I've been to my fair share of events over the years. South by Southwest, New Media Expo back before it was Blog World. I've been to a lot of the bigger events, but when Chris invited me, I was excited for a number of reasons. Number one is my wife got to go, and she got to see me in this environment. Plus, a trip to the Philippines was great, but also to work with people and have a room full of people who were outlaying, honestly, a very large investment to come and learn about how, whether it's to do a launch, like Chris did a talk about how to do a launch, and memberships, which is what Mike Morrison did. Being Jamie Masters, she talked about, basically strategies and tactics. Like that, it's very, very, it's very much like an academy, but very, very intense. It's no longer happening. Chris has now got a new event called the Youpreneur Summit, which I'm also going to, and that's in London in November. I think the weather's going to be a little bit different than it was in Cebu, Philippines. So I think I should at least bring an umbrella with me. But it was just, to be in that, again, that energy with those 60 people who I've made friends with. Like, I mean, there are people that my wife and I are connected with consistently. I've had the ability to get to know Chris a little bit better and his wife and his team. There's something about going to an event that's that intimate, and to be able to speak at that event was great. I mean, again, Chris put together a top-notch event. And if you're interested in going to see what Chris does with an event, you should go to the Upreneur Summit. If you live in the UK, there's no reason why you can't go. And if you live in North America, a trip across the pond is never a bad thing. You get to see what life's like on the other side of the ocean. But I had a great time teaching people about, like, crafting their time and, defining their days. And I actually received a couple clients out of it. I've been on a couple shows out of it. I managed to do karaoke with friends like Jeff Goins and Grant Baldwin and people like that. So there's just something about an event that's of that caliber. I mean, the fireworks display, the beach stuff that we got to do. It's like you work and you have this retreat wrapped all into one. And it was one of the best events that I've ever been to.
That's awesome. Well, you trade, going from Tropical Think Tank to Upreneur, you're trading the sun and all, but you're getting maybe better tea. I don't know. Do you get?
Yeah,
tea?
I think you're getting. Yeah, you're probably going to get better tea. You're going to be able to see, that. I mean, I've never been to London, so that to me is going to be a big win. And I'm going as an attendee, so I'm not doing anything at the event. I'm probably going to do a workshop before the event, like a private one, kind of like what I'm doing at WDS. But what you're going to get is you're going to get the same content, the same caliber of content, just in a different setting. And we live in a time where, look, I mean, I know, Todd, that you promote live video, and I know that there's a lot of webinars and things that you can go to, but plenty of platforms where you can learn a lot of things. And you and I talked about this before, while we were at Vidcon, which I'm sure we're going to get to, is that there are a lot of things that you can learn just by sitting at home in your office, or, watching on YouTube, or going to a webinar. But there is nothing that replaces the live event experience of being in a room with people who have shared, even just a small modicum of a shared interest with you in these things. I mean, VidCon was a great example of that. But at events like World Domination Summit and Tropical Think Tank, you are sharing a lot more, like, because you're entrepreneurs and people look at you kind of like World Domination Summit. When I cross the border to go to the United States and they say, "Where are you going?" and I say, "Well, I'm going to this conference in Portland," I don't say World Domination Summit as I cross the border. It's just it's just something that you probably shouldn't say. But it's people, like, there are a lot of, you're with your people. You're with the people who get why you do what you do. And that, to be in the presence of those people, I mean, yeah, there's a cost associated with it, but the takeaways are massive. So you and I, when we were at VidCon, we ran into Michael Stelzner from Social Media Marketing World. Right. And I'd never been to that event yet. I'd heard wonderful things about it. And just to talk to Michael about it, it was kind of like that's the tipping point. I'm going. And I bought my ticket. And I know you have too, right? Yes. You're going as well.
Yep.
So again, there is something about being, you can't go to every event, obviously. But if there's events that you think you would benefit from, that you think being in the same space with people that are of your ilk would benefit you and your business, and even your life in general, because World Domination Summit's one of those. And Tropical Think Tank, my wife and I getting to go away 3 weeks without our kids, because we didn't just go to the Philippines for that. We bookended it with some holiday time. Make that happen. Make that happen, because it's the reason we do what we do is for the freedom to be able to make decisions like that and to be around the people that get us. So learning certain things from home is wonderful. We have the access to do that, but we occasionally hop on a plane, go somewhere new, meet the people that are part of your, quote, tribe, and it's going to pay off in a big way if you're open to it.
I agree completely. And quite often, I think that, I kind of use this phrase, and I say it all the time whenever we talk about these events, but a lot of the times it's really not about the event. It's about the people at the event. And the phrase I always say is the value's in the hall. I've been to events where the value, I even felt like VidCon, a lot of the value of VidCon was out in the hallway. I went to Summit Live. In fact, I thought most of the value at Summit Live was out in the hallway. When I went
to be fair, at VidCon, a lot of the danger was out in the hallway too, depending on if we were in the path of screaming teenage girl.
Exactly. Yeah, I know, it was crazy, wasn't it? I think social media marketing world will be different. I think there's going to be a lot of value on the other side of the door, but I do know people who went that didn't pay for a ticket, so they couldn't go into anything, but they were out in the hall meeting people that they know and holding, they had clients and they were holding meetings out in the hall or in restaurants down the way. So they found value, even though they weren't a ticket holder. They still kind of came and saw people, got into the community and did stuff. So, so just being on site, I mean, it's huge. So since we kind of broke the ice on VidCon, let's talk about VidCon. I've got mixed feelings about it overall. I thought it was a good experience, and I think it was bolstered by the fact that Madison and I were hanging out with you and Grace, your daughter. I don't know. I think we both can add something here, because I can talk about it from the perspective of a local. Like, I live locally. It's a no-brainer. It's not an expensive event. It's fun enough. I'm going to see enough people that I'm not paying for a room. I'm not paying for airfare. And I know you're going next year, and you saw a lot of value in it to make it worth coming back. But I know that has some to do with your daughter coming and enjoying it. If she wasn't doing it, I'm curious as to, would you do it again if your daughter wasn't coming with you, or would that matter? And from your perspective, what was the value of VidCon from the traveler's perspective?
Okay, so I'll preface this with what happened this week with my wife and I. We sit down. So to give you some background on how I plan my years out, I start my year in September. And the reason I do is because it mirrors the school year of my children. And also, I think January is, you're at your lowest point in terms of energy, and January is, if everyone's, again, I'm a bit different. I'm not going to start my year in January. So my wife and I sat down at the local coffee shop, and we went through everything from now until the September 2018. And we said, what are the events that we know that are coming up that have either already committed to or would like to go to? And VidCon was, even though I've already bought my ticket, VidCon was still one of those events where we're like, well, if we decide not to go, we can return the ticket. We have till the first week in June to return the ticket. I got, again, the value is in the hall for VidCon for me, but the value is also in what we had time to really hang out. Our daughters had a blast together. My daughter had an amazing time, but I think the benefit for me would have been probably more if I was doing the industry pass than say the creator one. The creator pass, which is what we bought, there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot happening up there that was much different than what wasn't happening on the main floor. We got to go to some other, fireside chats and things like that, but I largely saw the same group or type of people in those that I was seeing on the expo hall floor. In hindsight, because now that we've had a week or so to think about it, a little bit more than that, I think the industry pass would have been a better play if I wasn't going with my daughter. And so I think if I wanted to get the value out of VidCon that I wanted, I don't know if I could, but I would go back again, and maybe I'll do this. Maybe I will buy an industry pass. We don't know. It depends on what I do with video between now and let's say early next year. I think that's where, again, being in those parties, being in those rooms, that value would be greater to me than learning about, and you and I were in some of the sessions together where it was very much how they described the sessions weren't exactly what they were delivering in the sessions. Like, they weren't like, here's how you repurpose content. And it was just more of a retrospective of what they had done. And there was no tactical,
Exactly.
You had to dig to get the tactics. The best one I did, Thomas Frank, who's a buddy of mine, college info geek, he did one about like how to do video easy and make it happen. And his was great, full of like tons of tactical stuff. My daughter was bored in it because it's not something she would necessarily do. But I was like, oh, good, I got this. And I mean, it made me say, I really should probably look at Adobe products and so on and so forth. But, I mean, as someone who traveled a pretty decent distance, not as great as some people, like I'm coming from the West Coast to Canada, to go in June when it's not necessarily the coldest time of year here, which is what we think about in Canada when we book travel south. It's like, well, is June a good time? Well, it's not going to be the worst. It'll be warmer no matter where we go.
Right.
But I think the timing was good. The price was right for my daughter to be able to experience something like this. That was the value. So I'm going back for her and for the ability to hang out with you and maybe get some more Hot Wheels for my son. Yeah. But the overall impression, and I've seen this in the aftermath of some of what people talked about, is that this wasn't as good as previous years. This wasn't security apparent. Like there were a lot of the famous YouTubers that people went to go see, like people like my daughter, that got kicked out because they basically incited, for lack of a better term, a riot, because security wasn't prepared for the Beatlemania-esque kind of things that were happening there. And it was ridiculous. Like we would hear screaming, and I mean, I get it. I mean, it's something that our kids and younger people, because we're the Gen Xers at this point,
right?
But that they go, oh my gosh, Liza Koshy's here, or David Dobrik, and what was funny is I didn't realize that I actually knew some of these people about having watched them in my Facebook feed before. But I think that it's a con. It's like Comic-Con, or and I know that Hank Green is putting together a podcasting conference in Seattle called PodCon. Now that I've been to VidCon, I know what PodCon is going to be like. I mean, if you're a podcaster, you don't go to PodCon unless you're a famous podcaster, and you're invited, or you want to meet famous podcasters to get them on your show or whatever.
Right.
If you're a podcaster, you go to Podcast Movement because that's a podcast event for podcasters. I don't know that there's a video or a conference that's for people who are creating video, but I certainly know that there's one for people who watch it, and that's VidCon.
I would agree with you completely. I mean, it was, I thought it was good. I don't know. I kind of thought it was going to be something a little different than it was. That may be because I had
if the creator stuff was more, I mean, even the creator workshops that I went to, one was about, and it didn't even describe this in the sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it didn't even describe this in the actual event. Cause I got to go to these and I had the creator pass, and you kind of got to come up with me every once in a while. Cause basically we just said, you know what, I want you to come up, and we did that. Because my daughter had a creator pass. So we did the swap, whatever. I don't care. But I went into this workshop, and it was like, I thought it was going to be about like how to take things to the next level. And it ended up being about how to it is about pitching brands to sponsor your video so you can make money. And I'm like, this is not at all what I was looking for in an event. Like, I mean, if someone wants to sponsor a podcast or a broadcast, that's fine, but I'm not actively seeking it. So if you're going to put that in a workshop, tell me it's going to be there so I know I'm not. I mean, I'm a time management guy, for crying out loud. Like, don't have me waste my time.
Exactly.
It wasn't the creator stuff. If it had more value to me, then I would have been like, oh yeah. And I mean, we didn't pay a lot for the ticket, so I'm not like killing myself over it. But I think that there's not enough of a difference between what you get as a community person as compared to what you get as a creator. And I think that's something that VidCon should change, because there's no perspective in terms of value between the two, other than, in fact, if you're a creator, you don't even get to go to meet the YouTubers that you want to meet. So you're actually getting less of an opportunity to, if you're a creator, you'd probably want to have some of these people connect with you. Well, but if you're a community person, you're just a fan. So why don't you both have the same opportunity? And that, to me, we talked about, it seems like a cash grab. So yeah, there wasn't enough of a difference between them to make me say, wow, this is amazing. I mean, I like to have access, kind of like World Domination Summit, where if I don't want to go to a main stage talk, I could just not go because I'm having a great conversation with a bunch of people at a bar or something like that. And I'm not sitting there going, oh no, I feel regret. You know, I like to have that freedom. At VidCon, I didn't think it mattered.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it's not too late to get an industry on the super early
I
bird.
know, but it's like 4 times the price,
It
right?
is.
So
It's crazy, but you know, it is something that you know, if you decide you want to do it, I'd probably go in with you, because I think you do get access to some parties and some things that you don't have access to with the other two badges, and that might make it worth it. Again, it's a dice roll though, because I felt like the whole show was. There wasn't anything serious about it. I never felt
it's a con.
Yeah.
It's like Comic Con. It's a con, and as long as you know that, I know that going in, and you know, I think that if you bought like an industry pass to San Diego Comic Con, then obviously you're in the industry. And honestly, like the industry pass for VidCon, are we going to be around like executives from NBC and stuff like that who aren't really going to be interested in
Right.
necessarily going, oh, well, I want to have, you know, a Todd.LIVE show. Like, you know, so
Right.
you have to decide what the event, to me, the event is my daughter had a great time. I don't mind going to it. It's perfect family time, and I may get some other inherent value out of it by seeing people. And I mean, the one thing, honestly, one of the best things that happened there is we had a conversation with your friend Roberto, and I learned. I came away with I'm doing video. I'm going to start doing video 3 times a week. Like that's something, and I've got a plan in place. So if that pays off, then I could say, well, VidCon was the inciting incident for that. But it certainly wasn't like I can't go back and say, now let me go back into the things I learned at VidCon to see what else I can do with that. It was more, okay, I see the power of the video here. I see where it's going. I know there were some keynotes that, and I went back honestly, and again, reporting, I looked at like what a bunch of sites said about like what the YouTube keynote was about and things like that. And now I know what they're trying to do and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to say it's not valuable. It was a good time. It just wasn't what I expected. And if it was more money, then and if it cost me and my daughter more to come down there, then I would probably not have jumped at buying the ticket at that time. But it was, and it is, and so if you've never been, it's a pretty interesting experience. But don't go to it if you're a video creator going, this is going to be the thing that takes me to the next level. It'll probably just be the thing that validates that you should keep going with what you're doing.
Well, yeah, especially when you see legions of kids running. Not that any of us are going to be the type of YouTube star that draws that, but
Yeah.
it's still. I mean, you can take away from it that the power of YouTube, like you know, using it. You know, it might not be legions of 14-year-old girls chasing you down the hall, but it might be legions of adults who you never even meet that are consuming your content. I mean, YouTube is where it's at. And I think that there were a lot of things at this show that kind of reinforced that you know, YouTube's one of the first platforms that people really started, you know, getting on the internet and getting famous with. And it's just as new today as it was 10 or 12 years ago when it went online. I think that it's that key. And Roberto kind of pointed that out too. I mean, you know, he gave us, I think I asked him one question and it turned into a whole thing, but he had like 5 cameras on him. So, you know, they were getting some good footage there. Roberto's fantastic. His YouTube knowledge is without limits. It's just insane how much that man knows about YouTube. So what else is in store? We got WDS coming up. Anything else coming up with your summertime?
I am after this. One of the things that happened when I came back was and you and I talked about this too, but I've made a commitment. It's actually, you can't really see it here, but I got my whiteboard. If I pivot ever so slightly, you might be able to see it. Let me see there. Did you see it there? Yep. I don't know if you can read what's on it, but basically, I have now a complete strategy for what Productivityist is going to evolve into going forward. So that was a big thing for me is to cut. I basically took from June 15th till the end of June. I wouldn't say off, but I put the business on autopilot, which I wouldn't normally do, honestly, until August, because my start of the year starts in September. or I would do it during WDS time. But clearly, I've got this academy to work on. So I've come up with, the podcast. There's going to be some changes to my Patreon, which is going to be rolling out later in the summer, if not early fall. But the thing I'm going to be working on when I get back from WDS is a digital course.
Nice.
I am building a course that is going to be kind of like the flagship course. I've already got a flagship product called the Playbook, the Productivityist Playbook. So I'm going to probably do another bit of a launch for that, and then I'll be doing the course, and then in August I'll be focusing on just the plan going forward, which is like the video, the podcast, changes to the podcast, some physical products, like just an overall plan. So I think that's my biggest thing. And the summer is fun here because my kids, they do spend some time up north in the Yukon with that's why I'm doing it. The course will be actually filmed during the last week of July because no one will be home but me. So I'll be doing it during that time.
Right.
And then August will probably be the marketing plan and tightening it up. And then September will be the launch of it. And then we'll see how it goes from there. But those are my plans. No events. I have no events that I'm scheduled to go to at this point until November. I may go to an event in August. My wife and I are talking about this, but it's a training event. And it's called, Donald Miller. I mentioned him off the top. He does the story brand workshop. He's doing one in Portland. And I've heard great things about it from a number of people. And one of the biggest struggles I have, and I don't know if it's because I've not really had a marketing background or if I'm Canadian and I'm just too polite to ask. But marketing is is like getting people to I don't want to be pushy when I market. I don't like that. So this will help me with that, I believe. We just have to figure out if it's going to be something that we want to put in the budget. But he normally only puts this on and trains it himself in Nashville, which is a much further trip. Portland is literally a 6-hour drive. So I could make Portland happen fairly easily. It's just a matter of, do I want to do that in mid-August? So we'll see about that. But no events confirmed until when I go to the UK for Upreneur after World Domination Summit.
Now, you did mention a physical product somewhere back in there, but you didn't mention specifically a book. And we talked about writing a book when we were at Vidcon. What's your plan there? So
I actually wrote about this on my blog, and this is something else I decided to do. Is I'm getting back to blogging. Like there'll be 5 posts per week on Productivityist.
Nice.
Because I miss that, and you get to a point where, and I think this happened to me over those 2 weeks, where you listen to everybody's advice. Oh, you should only post once per week, but make it like a 3,000 word post, or you should post 3 times a week, or you should. And I'm like, I want to write like with the frequency of Seth Godin. That's what I want to write. But can I write 7 days a week? No. So I'll write 5. And I can do that. I can commit to that. But the book, that people are going to go, well, how do you write a book when you're writing 5 days a week and going to be doing 3 videos and you're going to modify your podcast and you're building physical products? Like, well, I have a small team that helps me with that, with some of that, the administration part on that. But the book, I wrote about this, I think it was Tuesday, and it was about the idea that, or no, it was actually today's blog post, I think, where I can't go into a bookstore without seeing friends of mine's books on the shelves. And it's one of those things where it kind of drives me nuts a little bit. So I started working on my book proposal, and that's something that I'm going to position to publishers, get to my agent, position to publishers, and who knows where that's going to go. But the proposal is now being written. So I've got my Productivityist Playbook, which is kind of like my own self-published thing. I'm going to have the digital course, and then the book. At this point, the book will be written, and it's about my philosophy, my methodology around time and task management and personal productivity. But if I don't have a date in mind, whereas if it's not picked up, then I'm going to just write it anyways and self-publish it. But that's the plan right now, is to get the book proposal done, get it off, and hopefully start seeing some action on that, because and I guess with VidCon, that's another thing, and WDS and any of these events, when you start going to these events often enough, and 7 years at WDS, I've seen people who have gone to events WDS is one of them, where they go every year and they say that they're going to take what they learned and come back better than ever. And they come back energized, but they haven't really done anything else different. The WDS becomes almost like a panacea for them. You know what I mean? Like the
Sure.
thing that they, whereas I think for me, every year I've evolved. Obviously, I mean, I'm speaking at an academy this year. So, I mean, it's my own academy. So every year I've kind of leveled up. Well, the one area that I think, that the book is the next step in that evolution to reach people offline that I haven't reached online. So that's what that's about. But I've had people like say, where I want a course from you. Like that's what I want. My course on Skillshare is one of the most popular Skillshare courses in productivity. It was the most popular in all of 2016. And it's just a tiny little course. So for me to do something bigger and better, I think that it's going to provide a lot of value for people. And that's what I want. I mean, in the spirit of WDS, it's going to be quite the adventure putting one together. I've got a community that, I want to serve. And the putting this together is the best form of service I can do because I can only be in so many places at once. So this allows me to be in as many places as possible through this digital course.
So let's make the date August 22nd. You need to have this thing done by August 22nd, right?
You've got no. Well, let's put it this way. My start of the year is Labor Day.
Right.
So I will probably have everything ready by the 22nd, but I probably won't do the launch till, early September because I don't want to interfere with somebody else's launch. I mean, I hear somebody else is going to have a launch around that time, August 22nd.
You assigned August 22nd to me. I don't know how,
Yeah.
I don't remember how we picked that date, but we picked that date. I think that's
we based it on school. We based it on your
my
school.
kids my kids start school on the 22nd. So
which is what mine is. My kids start school the day after Labor Day.
Well, I've been working on mine. Just to give you a little update. I have been working on mine. I've been building an outline, and while I build the outline, I build my slides. So it's all in my head. So I know what I'm thinking about. I'm not going to build the outline and then later go do the slides. I'm doing it kind of each slide, and I'm doing the outline and thinking about what the slide will be about, and creating it in that fashion. I still have some outlining and slide creation to do. I imagine at least another 2 to 2.5 weeks of that. And ideally what's going to happen, because July is pretty much toast. Once I start WDS, the rest of my July is I'm either in Portland, Oregon, or I'm in Kentucky, South Carolina on the East Coast trip to see family. So I can do the outline. I can even do the slides during this whole month in the evenings and stuff when I'm not doing family stuff. But August is reserved to filming and getting the digital, the video content created, edited, and probably, if I'm going to go with Kajabi or whatever, getting that worked out. I don't think that's going to even be any trouble. That's probably like a whole day, and Kajabi's totally set up. They make it look so easy.
And for me, the video is going to happen that week. I think it's for me, the 23rd through the 31st of July. My family is out of town. So I basically no appointments, blocked out that entire week where I'll just be doing video. Like that's it. So it'll be a very intense week, but I'll be able to, set up, because I've got equipment and stuff. So I'll be able to set it up at various points in the house, or I could just do it in my office or do a bunch of different things. But I'll be planning that out largely when I get back. So I get back on the 18th of July. And then there's basically like a 4-day span there where I'll be kind of mapping out the final pieces of where things are going to be. But it's exciting, and it's like the thing is and I think this happens with events too. It's exciting and terrifying and invigorating and challenging. But that's the life of an entrepreneur, right? That's I was walking by. I picked up my son from one of his summer camps yesterday. And I walked by this guy who was mowing. It's in this pavilion that's near a field, and I watched this guy mowing the lawn with like a tractor of the field, and he was killing it. It was awesome watching him do this. And for a split second, I thought, sometimes there's every once in a while you have in your head that pops like, wouldn't it just be easier to do that job? Just show up, hop on a lawnmower, drive it, for a few hours. Maybe do a few parks and then be done for the day.
If you can make enough money.
But then you go, all right, but then I have to be where I have to be at a certain time. I don't have as much control over it. And that quickly goes away. One of the best talks I've ever seen at World Domination Summit was from 2 years ago. And it was Derek Sivers. And if you've not read or seen or any of Derek's stuff, do yourself a favor and go. because if there's another writer who can say a lot without writing a lot, Derek Sivers is like that, much like Seth Godin is. But everything Derek's written, unlike Seth, sometimes Seth has his misses, but every writer does. Derek has a lot of like hits.
Right.
And he talks about the idea of how you become an entrepreneur. And he goes through his whole history of CD Baby and how he founded it and sold it and all that stuff. But he said you become an entrepreneur for 3 reasons, and one of them is kind of like the overriding factor. He says fame, fortune, freedom. Like those are the 3. And for some people, fame is the paramount reason they want to be famous. Maybe that's what a lot of the YouTubers are doing it for at VidCon. Fortune, you want to make a lot of money, and there's plenty of entrepreneurs that are doing it with a money first mentality. But the other one is freedom. Like you're doing this for the freedom to be able to do what you really want to do in both work and in life. And that's mine. Mine is, and I'm sure that there's many people that I hang out with, it's freedom. That's the primary driver. And so that talk always comes back into my head whenever I, go by a guy who's like, enjoying his work. And I've got a buddy, one of my groomsmen, who still works at Costco, which is where I worked at for over a decade. And he loves it. He goes in at 2 a.m, drives forklift for 8.5 hours, goes home and spends time with his family, makes a good living. And that's what he wants to do. And I don't begrudge him for that at all. I think it's awesome. But for me, that wasn't enough. And I think that if you're, if you want to grow, putting yourself out to go, not just to go to events, but to challenge yourself with maybe some new product ideas, thinking a bit outside the box. I mean, one of the things I'm doing, Todd, which I haven't talked about anywhere else, is that my podcast is going to be actually 2 podcasts.
Nice.
One is going to be like a conversation based one, but the other one is going to be about the tech tools that people really want to hear me talk about. But the problem with tech, as you know, is that it's not evergreen, right? Like things change. Well, I'm going to embrace that. I'm going to say, I'm here to talk about, Todoist filters. And today's date is July, whatever it is. Now, if you're listening to this podcast in July 2021, why are you listening to this? Todoist may not even be around anymore. So find something else. Like I'm going to embrace the fact because, let's face it. My daughter's watching Party of 5 on Netflix right now, and nobody looks like that anymore. It's from like the late 90s, early 2000s, right?
Sure.
So I'm gonna embrace it, and I think that's what I don't know anybody else who's doing a podcast quite like that, but I'm gonna embrace it. I'm gonna see how it works, and so yeah, I think when you go to events, you come out energized and galvanized. If you allow yourself the ability to kind of remove yourself from like every piece of advice you could look at online and say, what do I really want to do? How do I do it? What are my intentions? That's my definition of productivity anyways. What's my intention and how do I pay attention to it? And taking those 2 weeks and coming down to see you in Orange County.
Yeah.
And that gave me some real clarity as to where I want to go moving forward. And if anything, events like VidCon and World Domination Summit and Tropical Think Tank reinforce and galvanize you along the way.
Well, I'm glad that you had a great time coming down here. It was great to see you and for our girls to hang out and get to know each other. And I think that for them was just fabulous. They really had I remember when I was at VidCon on the first day and I looked at Madison and I told her, I said, I can't imagine 3 more days of walking around this expo downstairs, getting M&Ms and getting, oh, my computer's doing something funky here. Oh, interesting. It's taking wow, that has never happened before. Totally took over my screen.
Weird.
Let's see. Oh, there we go. We're back. Yeah. I have a reminder in my calendar and it does a pop-up and I haven't figured out which one it is. And I guess it is at, I don't know what time it is, 9:50. So it's something that's at 10 o'clock. I'm gonna have to fix that so that never happens to me again. It just totally took over my feed of you coming in. No, but our daughters, they just had a great time.
Yeah.
But I did look at Madison and I said, I really don't want to play Donkey Kong and eat candy and zigzag this place for 3 days. Hopefully something more is going to come out of this thing. But I think for them, it did. And, kind of not to reopen the whole VidCon experience, but you and I, when we first got there, were we didn't know the layout. We didn't really want to let our daughters out of our sight at first. And we quickly got rid of those fears because it really was overall an okay environment and nothing was going to go wrong. And that being able to break away, I think made it better for you and me,
Mm.
whether we were upstairs or outside having a sandwich, whatever we were doing.
And I got a fidget spinner out of the deal.
Yeah. Letting the girls kind of break away and do their thing. And you know what? It probably made it better for them with all the teenagers there to break away from their Gen X dads and get to hang out and do what 13-year-olds do. And talk about things 13-year-olds talk about. So yeah, overall, it was great. Well, Mike, listen, I mean, it's exciting the things you've got coming up. I can't wait to see you next week at World Domination Summit. We're going to have a blast. And, you know, you've got a lot of exciting things going on. You kind of gave me that pep talk and we set some dates. And so I've got a lot of things going on. So it was a great experience having you down here. I can't wait to see you next week. And I'm excited for what you've got planned. And, you know, I wish you all the best with everything you're working on.
Same, Todd. I mean, I can't wait to see what you put together as well. Thanks for inviting me on today. I had a blast.
Yeah, it was fun. I think people want to hear about VidCon. I really haven't seen a lot of content on VidCon. And, you know, quite honestly, if you've got time a week or two after we get back from World Domination Summit, if you want to join me and we talk about World Domination and our experience there, you're welcome to come back on the program and we can talk about that later and see if it's something that'll work out.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
Folks on the podcast, thank you for listening. Please like, review, and subscribe. Please know that I do send this broadcast generally as a quadcast live video to Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, and Instagram. This particular broadcast only went to Facebook. I was having a snafu with my software, and I didn't want to fight it. I wanted to go live because Mike and I both have a schedule to live up to. So please know, though, that you can watch these podcast episodes live if you're following me on any of those other platforms. Please do. If you do, please reach out, talk to me, let me know you're with me. Let me know that you came over from the podcast. I'd love to hear about what you're doing and what you've got going. If you're interested in what Mike's doing, I'll put in the notes. Productivityist.com. You can find him. If you search Productivityist just about anywhere, or even if you just search his name, Mike Vardy, he is going to come up. That's a little easier to spell. It's like a tongue twister for my fingers trying to spell Productivityist. So you can find him just by simply typing Mike Vardy on Twitter, Facebook. I've done it, and he pops right up. So if you're interested in time management, you're interested in Mike Vardy and what Mike Vardy's about, he's a great resource, and you can find him pretty much on every platform. So I encourage you to do so. Mike, thanks again for being on the program, and I will see you in less than a week.
Yep.
So
take care.
You as well. Take care, folks. Thank you for joining me.